Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Hi, everybody. I am in Austin, Texas today, attending and speaking at the Southwest Showcase put on by IAEE and the Texas Hill Country chapter of MPI. So I'm excited to be here with you and to do the next rendition of the show, talking about plant-based vegan options in our catering menus. And my guest today is Rich Wilner, who is the general manager of Affairs to Remember, a catering and event production company in Atlanta, Georgia. And he has more than 35 years experience in the hospitality industry, and probably that as eating plant-based, right, Rich?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me on, Tracy.
You're welcome. And so everybody, Rich and I chatted a couple of years ago when I was researching, doing a book and stuff, which I still have to produce, and wanted to bring him back on to talk about this plant-based eating and why it's important to him, and actually as a caterer as well, how they incorporate that into that. So Rich, and I'm going to bring up this topic just very briefly, but you were raised in a family that kept kosher, but you followed plant-based, vegan, vegetarian for a long time. So how did that transition happen, and why is plant-based so important to you?
Loaded question. So first, you and I have already talked about this, but your audio is a little in and out.
Okay.
So just setting everybody up for that expectation. Yes. So I grew up in a kosher household, and I remember very distinctly the time sitting around the dinner table, and I was probably 6, 7 years old, and the family dinner was a piece of steak. And there was something that I noticed in that piece of steak. It was a vein. And that was when the connection happened for me about meat coming from animals. And that pretty much did it in for me. I remember for a couple of months or years after being okay with ground beef, but that was the last time I ever ate a piece of steak, and it just kind of went down. I couldn't do it anymore. So I pretty much adopted a vegetarian lifestyle from probably 15, and I would dip in and out of I'll eat fish or I'll eat poultry. And then about 5 years ago now, or 6 years ago, fully adopted a vegan, plant-based lifestyle.
Okay.
When people are vegan, we've had this conversation before, I always ask people, or when they're plant-based eaters, I say, why do you follow that dietary lifestyle? Because people adopt that lifestyle for different reasons. You heard my first time was really because of animal ethics. And it wasn't, and of course at that age, I was not aware of the treatment of animals. I just didn't like the idea of eating animals. And then the more I learned about that for animal ethics reasons, I really don't. But other people it's for health reasons. Many of us are aware of the health benefits of eating a plant-based diet. And for others, it's for the planet, that there's sustainability reasons to follow plant-based lifestyle. So there are a lot of reasons.
Right.
And I raise my hand to all of them.
Well, that's good. And last night when we were chatting before prepping for this, it was the labeling of that, right? Of why we label and can we be in multiple labels at one time, right? Or are we dismissed because we call ourselves vegan?
I think that Plant-based is just a marketing effort to rebrand vegan because vegans come with a lot of animosity. We've talked about this, that they are a group that is probably at the bottom of the totem pole in terms of who wants to hang out with who. They're the last group picked for the dodgeball team. But then really the truth is veganism is a lifestyle. It's more than what you eat. It's how you live, what you wear. I don't wear leather. My life truly is more on the vegan lifestyle. What I consume, plant-based, is what you consume. But I also think it's a marketing piece. And I think it's very adaptable for young people today because they automatically, when they hear plant-based, they also think about the environment and they think about animals and they think about all of those things. So it's a more mindful approach. And it comes with less, it's a little more unknown. When you say I'm a vegan, man, you better not pick up that donut, or people be like, I thought you were a vegan. So being plant-based has a lot more flexibility to it. It's not a 365, 24/7 commitment. Plant-based feels more, well, this is how I eat the majority of the time. But if I want to eat a scrambled egg, I can do it. Where vegan feels like you've signed in blood, I'm in, and don't break that. So I think you and I were speaking about these labels, and we talked about flexitarians, flexo-vegetarians, where people feel like they have more room and can make choices and nobody's looking at them like, you broke the contract, you're going to have to give back your toaster and your t-shirt and your hat. So.
Well, one thing with gluten-free, I think a lot of times as well, right? But I think there are a lot of people who are not celiac who eat gluten-free and they're like, oh, I can have that bread, but I can't have that. And that's breaking that seal or that. And it's frustrating for caterers when they do that for food service. And my guest at the beginning of the month was, how do you do it? It's different when it's in your own home than when you're projecting it out or your food service company to make that swap in general saying, oh, she's not really that, right? But I think we do get anybody with a dietary need of any kind of gets their nose snubbed for a variety of reasons.
Well, from a catering standpoint, we have two accountabilities. One is we deal with a client who is choosing a menu for their guests. When a patron walks into a restaurant, they are ordering for themselves and their own specific needs. When you host an event for 150 people, you hopefully as a host want to accommodate those needs, but you don't necessarily know the needs. So my two accountabilities are when my client shares with me, I have guest XY, and they have told me that they need a diet that meets these considerations. So we would prepare something for guest XY that meets their specific consideration. That's accountability number one. Accountability number two is as a vendor, as a food purveyor, and as an innovator and food leader, I automatically create menus and products that even if my client doesn't say, oh, I want gluten-free items on my buffet or vegan items, that I have options available that I actually put onto menus that just happen to be vegan or happen to be gluten-free. And that way their guests who may not have made their preferences known ahead of time can walk up and get a meal and be like, oh my God, this is so lovely. I've got options.
And I love that approach. It's looking at it holistically, right? And not pigeonholing and sewing, because you don't want to provide a whole bunch of different customized plates for individuals. Why not serve a meal that everybody can enjoy together?
Mm-hmm. And part of it, I don't want to say it's a trick. Our goal is to make delicious food no matter what. And to have a party or an event that has a number of items that people are just enjoying, and all of a sudden, like, wait, this whole menu was gluten-free, or this whole menu was vegan or vegetarian. Wow, I didn't even notice. I just noticed how great everything was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's that labeling thing.
Right. That very true. But that's the whole goal, is like, it should be delicious for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, that's going to bring you back more customers because you're looking at it a different way.
And we broadcast that. It's on our website. It's part of our speech. Our menus are labeled if they're gluten-free items. And if you're in the market looking for that stuff, it's so nice to find it's not in fine print at the bottom of the page someplace. We speak loudly about our commitment to handling special dietary considerations in a thoughtful, creative, and innovative way. It's not just, we'll give you 2 scoops of potato and extra carrots. So.
But a lot of people get. Yeah. So I want to touch on the aspect of sustainability. I just gave a speech on sustainability, and I really want to touch on how Affairs to Remember, how the plant-based items relate to the whole sustainability practices that you follow. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Okay, so I always like to have little reference points. So I'm going to ask you a question. Maybe you already know the answer to this. How many gallons of water does it take to produce 1 pound of meat?
I just had it on my slides. I think it's like 30.
Oh, no.
No. How many?
Higher.
100? 500? Okay, your thumb is out of the way. I can't see where you're going. Wow. 1,000 gallons of water to produce a pound of meat? 2,000? Oh my gosh.
It's not as high as 2,000. It's around 1,500. 1,500 gallons of water.
Wow.
To produce 1 pound of meat. So if the conversation is forget about greenhouse gas emissions and cutting down crops to plant soy and corn to feed cattle that we turn around and slaughter and eat, forget about that. Let's just talk about the water. So that alone. So again, having and promoting items, we're not here to push our agenda down people as much as to just have products that are great. And a lot of our corporate clients, I would say it's a beautiful thing when your mission aligns with your marketing and what clients want. So the fact that this is important to us, and our job is to create products that people would want to buy, and again, happen to great, then all the better. If you're talking about sustainability strictly in terms of, we recycle, we reduce, we do all those things from an operational standpoint.
Right.
But having from a food standpoint, we buy locally as much as we can. We buy seasonally as much as we can. We make most of our products. We don't buy our dressings, our sauces, everything, packaging and prepackaged items, just from a packaging standpoint, are not great.
Right, exactly. There's a lot of waste in that.
We own most of our guestware, china, flatware, plates with lots of varieties for people to choose. And your most sustainable minded clients are going to say, oh, we want to use disposables and we want to use compostable disposables. I'm like, well, the best thing to do is to use something that's reusable.
Right.
Well, won't that cost me more? No, it doesn't. So we always try to say, we have this stuff and I can include this stuff at no additional charge. And that really is what makes your party greenest. Then we start going into, like, all of our packaging for our to-go meals is compostable, and we offer that in terms of guestware as well.
That's fantastic. Now, you and I've had multiple conversations now, and I'm trying to rethink some of those conversations that we were talking about that would really be pertinent here. But I think one of the ones that I asked you beforehand was, and what we talk about here on the show, is safe, sustainable, and inclusive. And I really liked your answer about what that means to you. So can you tell people what a safe and sustainable and inclusive meal means to you? You might not know what you said.
Wait, what did I say?
Just basically practicing a plant-based, whole grains, fruits and vegetables because of the benefit, what it does for the environment and for your health. So
I delivered just a few weeks ago. I spoke with at a national convention that happened to be for 4-H.
Okay.
And I knew I was getting up there in front of this group of, farmers, more rural folks, and doing some educating and talking about eating kale and being mindful of ethical treatment of animals, et cetera, et cetera. And I knew when I walked up there. So it's a path. It's an education. Mm-hmm. We all have an at-stakeness in this conversation. We want this planet to be here to serve generations to come. And if you look at any article, we're at a very close within the next 30 years of a breaking point and with our environment. And it starts. We have this saying that we can make a difference one bite at a time. Mm-hmm. And if people followed a plant-based lifestyle, it would be more beneficial than taking every car off the road.
So how, as a caterer, and I remember having a conversation similar to this with one of your competitors, Tony, years ago, about how does a meeting planner approach you to talk about the sustainability and talk about the plant-based, incorporating that into their menus instead of you waiting for, because a lot of times they're like, yeah.
So we're consultants. All of my people here have a job title that includes consultant. And it begins with asking all of the right questions. And if and when they don't bring certain information to the forefront, we generate it. So let's say I was doing an event for a tech office. And the person who was in charge of planning that event said, okay, I just want a traditional dinner buffet. I might start talking about the makeup of their employees and tell me a little bit about the characteristic of these employees, because my experience would tell me you probably want to go low on dairy. You probably want to increase your vegetarian options above and beyond. And you can have a little bit more fun in terms of flavor profile. We might be able to incorporate some Indian flavor, some Asian flavor, and it be great. Even if they don't generate that, we're going to generate it. So.
Okay. And actually, I was having a conversation with a hotel the other day, and I haven't looked at your menus, but you just said that yours are labeled, but it's really hard to go to some properties and determine whether items are free from things or whatever. And especially when I get, this doesn't really pertain to catering companies, but hoteliers is like, if you order a custom meal, then you lose your commission. You're not your commission, but a discount rate that you get if you don't check off the boxes. I want this meal. I want this one. I want this one. I want this one. But, one property is like, well, all of our meals are gluten-free from the get-go, but how do I know that? And I guess it's you as a consultant giving us that information. Does that make sense?
I'm not as familiar as the way hotels. So our response is, if you tell me somebody has special dietary considerations in advance, we look at the existing menu and we either say if all they can eat is green beans, that's not sufficient. And so we would make a special meal for that person. Mm-hmm. If they want their party to have, again, flexibility and variety, that would accommodate gluten-free, vegetarian, vegan, maybe soy-free, egg-free, dairy-free. I mean, there's so many things that come up. Nut-free. Just having a nut-free menu is huge right now. We see what's better. If it's anything more than 10% of your guest count that needs a special meal, then I would say, let's look at your overall menu.
I like that. Mm-hmm.
And if it's less than that, then let's see if we can, let's accommodate those individuals.
All right. So there's a word there that you've said, and I've said it for 12 years or whatever, is special meals. And I'm bringing this up because somebody mentioned it on on a LinkedIn thing, is like, my needs are not special. They're my needs, but maybe I'm a little person, or maybe I have a disability. They're not special needs. I get up every day and I brush my teeth and do that. How can we get out of the word making it special, right? And you and I have kind of had this conversation a little bit, but
I use the word, so you said special. I often hear dietary restrictions, and I don't use the word restrictions. I use the word considerations.
I like that. Mm-hmm.
And I find, because I'm not restricted from eating meat.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a religious thing for me. I'm not restricted. It's a consideration. I haven't done anything bad or wrong. If I want to eat that piece of cheese, I can, but it's a consideration. So consideration doesn't necessarily feel strong enough when it comes to things like allergies. I start using the word requirement. So it's requirement and considerations.
I like that. It separates them, because a lot of times people are like, well, how do I determine whether it's a need or a want, right? Or like you said, consideration or requirement. And that's a different way to look at it as well. I like that. But again, it's putting us in the boxes, and some of them are necessary boxes that we have to be in, right? Because if nut's going to kill me.
Yeah, the requirement box is a non-negotiable.
Right. And just out of curiosity, how do you handle if somebody was coming to you and they had one or two people that required a kosher meal? How do you handle that as a caterer?
We have to outsource that. Again, we look at what the other guests are enjoying, and we try to map on. I would give the kosher caterer the menu that everybody else has, so that what these guests are getting is equal to and not less than the experience everybody else is getting. Right. Then, of course, with kosher, you have to make sure it's executed and handled a certain way.
Right. Exactly. And well, we won't get into the whole kosher conversation, because that's a whole nother long, different conversation. And I actually had a conversation about it last night from the legal aspect of it, from a hotel legal aspect of it, which was interesting. So how can we, as an industry, start looking at this plant-based opportunity to change how we impact the world, impact the environment?
Well, I think the need is going to drive it more than anything. I think if you're a food purveyor and you don't get on board, you're going to be left behind. When McDonald's comes up with a McPlant burger, right? You got to get on board. Like, hello, everybody. Either figure this out or you're going to be left behind. KFC is getting ready to launch a plant-based chicken nugget. So the world is telling you to do this. Now, whether or not people buy those products, but if you look in the supermarket now, I don't have to go to the little smelly patchouli stores anymore to get plant-based products. The Kroger and the Publix have beautiful options right now. So society is telling us.
Yeah. Well, and I even ate dinner at a hotel restaurant last night. Not a single thing on the menu was gluten-free, nor was a single thing vegan, let alone vegetarian. We probably could have been made vegetarian. And I was floored by the lack of thought in the menu design.
And often you can go into those places and ask, will your chef accommodate it? And most of them will. So I'll look at a menu online before going, and if I don't see anything, I'll say, does your chef prepare things? And most will. I think it's unfortunate that they don't include those items as a standard on their menu. Right. But I know the restaurant world works a little differently. But you should ask. That being said, I mentioned the McPlant burger, which is, I think they're aligned with Impossible Burger or Beyond. It's one of those.
Yeah.
But the trick is it's coming with cheese and mayo. Not mayo.
Right.
And so it's not vegan, but they have said publicly they're going to cook it on the same grill as the burger. So you have to know, where do you stand? If it's for health benefits, you're probably going to be fine. If it's for environmental reasons, you're probably going to be fine. But if you're vegan for ethical reasons, you probably don't.
Burger King got sued from a guy in Florida because they cooked it on the same grill. And but like all you need to do is put a piece of aluminum foil down on the grill and cook it, right? That would solve that problem. We were talking about muffins the other day, and that I posted that I shop for these gluten-free vegan muffins at Lucky Tree in Raleigh. And last night you made a comment, like, why do we really have to recreate that muffin, right? Why don't we just be thoughtful in creating that gluten-free meal in general?
So, I don't eat Impossible Burgers or Beyond Meat. It's a little bit of frankenfood. So one of, again, my reasons are partly ethical and health. The fat content in those things, I mean, they are delicious. I've had them. They're not healthy, nor do I necessarily want to have something that replicates meat. What I look for, and what our conversation is, why are we looking to recreate something? Why not just come up with new items? So like our chef has designed these beautiful vegan meals that often a non-vegan would say, wow, that looks great. He came up with a falafel loaf with this tahini sauce that's out of this world. It's fantastic. So that versus a burger, go with that. Why do I need to do, here's our Impossible or whatever, Beyond Meat burger? Just give me something else. Why do I need that? Why do I need to create a gluten-free muffin? How about an alternative that is filling, that tastes great, and is just another breakfast item? So get out of the box.
That's a novel idea. Get out of the box. So I posted something the other day on LinkedIn, and this just popped into my head. Somebody commented on my friend's share of it, said, so what do you serve vegans for lunch? I'm like, okay. I mean, that's just a very generic, loaded question, right? There are lots of things that you can serve. And it's throwing that in that box, I guess. But I have to say, I told you last night, I'm like, when I woke up on January 1st to practice veganary this month, I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to eat? I don't know what I'm going to eat. But then I took a breath and I'm like, oh, I can have this. And I can have what I made the other night, spaghetti squash with the artichoke and cashew cream on top of it. It was delicious.
So good.
Yeah. So how can you, and you've kind of said this as well, but your meeting planners, educate them that this is going to meet all of those needs as well as be delicious. And it's understanding, it's getting your sales team, Christy and everyone else that I know there, whose name is escaping me at the moment, that sell it to educate them on that. Do they do that when they're doing that consulting?
Well, like your friend said, people look to us to be their solution base.
Right.
You know, I've got a problem. I don't know what to. I'm not going to laugh at them and say, what do you mean you don't know? We eat more than just carrots and celery and potatoes. My job is they're coming to me with a problem, and I'm here to be their solution. So when I present great options, they're like, oh my God, this is awesome. Whether it's for a party or just in somebody's household, there is that, like the experience you had January 1st. What am I going to eat? It does take, we're so used to the meat, starch, protein plate that what do we do when we remove a third of that?
Right.
What
yeah.
do we do? And then we tell them what we did. There's beans, there's tofu, there's grains. I mean, there are so many items. And then what do you do with those? We eat a lot now. I'm a food person. I'm very comfortable in the kitchen. I know my way around. I enjoy cooking, but I have friends who are vegan or vegetarian for ethical reasons that are not foodies. They don't know how to cook and they don't know what to do. And often they're eating the prepackaged stuff that's not healthy. They eat fried foods. They eat dairy because it's easy. Right. But it's not, it doesn't check the healthy balance.
Well, and I think that's the balance. And I saw Chef at a food show years ago, and walking that food show, it is like the vegan gluten-free item has got 35 ingredients in it that I don't know how to read. right? And it's loaded with tons of sugar, or it's got salt in it, or lots of high in calories. It doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy just because it's got those labels on it.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
If you go back to the root of any regional cooking, whether it's Italian or Latin or French, you're dealing with whole ingredients. You're dealing with fresh herbs, fresh vegetables, things. There weren't all of these mononuclear, whatever they are, elements. And if you just cook with fresh product, use a little fresh garlic, it's going to go a long way. Don't be afraid of salt and pepper. Use some cumin, use some turmeric, use some basil, use some cilantro, and jazz up a dish. You don't need all of these extra flavoring. We start talking about, so it's fascinating. What makes food, there are certain elements of what makes food taste great. The very first thing that makes food taste great is how it looks.
So true.
If it doesn't look good, we're not getting past square one. Get it away from me. Number two, how does it smell? We have, I think it's 5 senses of smell. I mean, taste. You have 5 senses of taste. You have thousands of olfactory nerves. So before it ever gets into your mouth, you have already made 2 major assessments of that product, whether it's going to be good or not. And then we taste it, and then we start inside of our mouth. Does it have crunch? A crunch factor is important. So if you want something that's going to be good, make it look pretty, make it smell appealing, have it have flavor and taste good, and add some crunch element, you got a winning product there.
Oh, and that's a real guiding force across the board for anybody who's ordering the food or preparing the food. I love that, because you don't want something that smells, oh my gosh, what is that, right? But I think I love that. Thank you very much for sharing that. One of the other things I was thinking about too is taking us a little bit away from that, but is the service style. And you've got your consultants who are your sales team, but your service levels, I think they are the front-facing people of your staff to the customer. How do you envelop them into the sustainability, plant-based world of what Affairs does and what your service levels are?
Well, that's a little more complex. If you're doing a served dinner, for example, and we know person A has on their RSVP or whatever communicated their special dietary considerations, we have a card made up. We have a number of cards made up. The first one goes down in front of that guest. As a person who eats a certain way, I walk into a room with a certain amount of anxiety. Did they get my request? Is it going to be met? I have a little level of anxiety when you walk into a room. Did my message get across? So that card going down in front of that guest lets them know, there's going to be no nuts in my meal today. Good. All right. I already have a level of confidence in the product that's going to be delivered. Then with each course, there's a card that is produced that says, this salad is nut free. This is nut free. And so there's a number of cards, and the back of house has a version, and the front of the house has a version. So we go through all of those steps to make sure we are doing the right thing. Okay. Now let's go back. You used the word special, and nobody likes that word special. And we've used the word label, and people don't like being labeled. That's where all of these things that lead to our success in delivering the end product. Sometimes people don't want to be called out. And that's that trick, and that's that balance. Wait, what's wrong with you? Why did you get that card? Did you win something? What's that about? So it is a balancing act of not making somebody feel special or different and yet feeling accommodated. So if you're doing a buffet, my recommendation is make sure there are a number of items that would meet a number of dietary considerations. That's a well-planned meal.
It has to meet multiple needs, and everybody should be able to walk through the same buffet without having to go into a special area. And it comes down to also with just you talking that story reminds me of an event I worked in Las Vegas at a large convention center, and we were serving like 4,000 to 7,000 people, and we had 683 dietary requests, and they came on. The hot boxes came as a train behind a golf cart, right? And they pulled it up and they put it in behind the pipe and draped area. And they had one sign that had this, but then and I've told this story before. So if anybody's listening and heard the story, and the servers stood in a line and guided everybody and pointed them to the far corner of the hall, because we needed to get that many people in. But if you didn't see that sign, you didn't know you were supposed to take a right and veer. And if you walked all the way back there and then somebody's like, oh, well, your meal's all the way up there, that service level.
Well, that goes back to you're calling me out. In society, right. We've come a long way that different is not equal. And we all want to feel equal. We all want to feel like we're taken care of. Back in the 70s, my aunt was a travel agent. And she would say to us, always order the kosher meal, because it was handled with kid gloves. It was beautiful. The guy next to you is getting whatever he got, but that kosher meal was just this extraordinary thing. So there it worked for you. On the other hand, it could have very easily been I can't eat nuts, I can't eat this. And you're saying, here, I got you 2 potato chip bags. So right. I think the thing is, let's create the whole experience. And that experience is not just in what you're eating. How are they treated? Do they have to go to another level or a back room or see the guy behind the curtain? That doesn't feel equal. Let's all feel equal in the experience that we're given.
That's so true. And it comes in so many different ways that can be interpreted, and that needs to be understood and managed. So, all right. So how can people get a hold of you? How can people follow your plant-based lifestyle if you put that out there, or Affairs to Remember?
Mm-hmm. So Affairs to Remember has a website, www.affairs.com, and we are on Instagram, and we are on Facebook. And you can see some of our website has some of our menus with special dietary considerations and beautiful photos, and our Instagram is always updated with some new products. We just did a new innovation tasting yesterday with some vegan meals, and I'm sure we'll highlight those in our social media platforms soon.
On that note, what are you seeing? I remember when Aquafaba came out in 2015 and Veg Magazine named it the invention of the year. Besides like the plant-based or the Impossible Burgers, what are you seeing plant-based wise that's exciting for the coming year? Any new jackfruit or anything like that?
I'm trying to think. There's just more products out there. And I think more restaurants are in Atlanta, especially. We have a great food scene, and we have very eclectic Buford Highway and Asian foods and Indian foods. And I think people are open to trying more things. And I think just like our people are connecting, I think our exposure to stuff is, if you like kimchi, great. If it's too strong for you, I make a kimchi and kale salad where it's just a little bit and it's awesome. So just mixing different flavors and things are great.
Okay.
Great way to start.
I think spices are getting their day now. I think adding more flavor and things like that. Yeah. Spices are being really used a lot more now. So, which is good, because steamed broccoli with some ranch seasoning on top of it.
And we were talking earlier about equipment, air fryers. I mentioned to you, that's a great thing to use. So some of our appliances change what we eat. You can do a lot with an air fryer, whether it's tofu or potatoes or cauliflower, and get a really nice finish. That's steamed vegetables again? No. Take that tofu and create a tahini and garlic and cumin little coating to brush onto it, stick it into the air fryer.
Yeah, and I had a harissa grilled cauliflower the other night for dinner. It was so good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, delicious.
Put some sesame seeds on top of it. I mean,
yeah,
it's great.
Okay, so to wrap it up, what is your favorite food to eat and drink?
So I'll eat pasta every day if it's available. I try.
And your son does too, doesn't he?
He eats everything. He does like pasta. I think I told you a story about him eating tortellini for breakfast, and a friend was like, "Why do you let him eat tortellini for breakfast?" And my answer was, if you look at the ingredients, it's basically a bagel and cream cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can eat whatever he wants. I always enjoy pasta, but it's not just the pasta. It's what you do with it. Pasta makes a great vessel for sauces and flavoring. So what you do with that, and never going to say no to a good glass of wine. So there you have it.
Speaking of the good glass of wine, do you pay attention to the vegan labels on wine and alcohol? No. Okay.
I mean, I would assume there actually is a bacon vodka. I've never had it, but by nature of ingredients, I would assume there's no animal product. I think there could be some manufacturing things that would cross over into ethical stuff, but I don't.
Yeah, barnivore.com is a website that you can look at to see, because it's the filtration process. But okay. Well, I so appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was good chatting with you.
Likewise.
I enjoyed it.
And when I come back down to Atlanta, I will have to somehow get a catered meal from Affairs to Remember.
Please do. Give me a call.
I will do that.
Some of our vegan foods.
I would love that, really. And I've had chef's food before, so I know he can cook.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yes. So everybody, Rich, thank you. Rich is with Affairs to Remember, an event and culinary production company out of Atlanta, Georgia. So if you're there and you need a catering company, look them up and call Rich, and they will take care of you. So, and I've worked with and known Affairs to Remember, oh my gosh, since 1997. So a good while. But thank you for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. If you haven't joined the Facebook group, please go ahead and do so. You can find it on Facebook. Just Google Eating at a Meeting, and stay tuned for the Every Meal Matters course that's going to relaunch in about 6 weeks. So big announcement coming up on that. So thanks, everybody. And until next time, stay safe and eat well. Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.